So recently, when I went to see my hypnotherapist, Paula, we were working on a technique called emotional resolution, which allows you to experience the negative emotional event, and from there, you allow your body to resolve that negative emotion. So it's recalling a negative emotional event, and then you observe your body and just allow it to resolve naturally. And so while doing this modality, Paula asked me, what was your recent event that you felt this heightened negative emotion? And I had said to her that there's a family member in my life whom I felt anger towards because I felt that he didn't stand up for himself, or he doesn't stand up for himself in a lot of situations. And so for some reason, then I had mentioned having some resentment feeling towards my mother. And a lot of you know my mother. She's like the sweetest, most pleasant, wonderful lady. She's amazing, but there's some feelings, residual feelings of resentment towards her, because I always felt that as a child, my mother didn't protect us by not leaving my abusive father, because my father abused us, me, my siblings, and my mother emotionally, mentally, and physically. And so I always had some feelings of resentment that my mother stayed with my father and therefore did not protect us from that traumatic childhood. And so all of a sudden, Paula, being so wise, and she's just really wise and smart, she said to me, Moon, the reason why you're having this negative emotion towards this family member that you feel doesn't stand up for himself is because of that initial emotional trigger from your childhood, that your mother didn't stand up for you guys against your father. And it was so profound. It was like this enlightening moment where you felt like all the puzzles just came together and you saw clarity. I clearly saw the connection between my negative emotion towards this person, this family member who I feel doesn't stand up for himself. Even small things, I get negative emotions, even small situations, because it's really going back to my childhood traumatic trigger that my mother didn't stand up for us against my father. So what I really realized from this therapy session is a lot of times when we have negative triggers in our life, about even small things, small things can trigger us. Oftentimes, it's triggered because of something bigger that happened to us in our past. So anytime now, this present day, when I have an emotional negative reaction like resentment, frustration, anger towards someone or a situation in this present day, 2019, this present day, then I have an awareness that it really is triggered by something that happened to me years ago when I was a child. I mean, it could have been 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so even the smallest things can trigger us. Don't you ever experience sometimes anger, frustration, and resentment, even for the smallest things? Sometimes when I see that there's no toilet paper in the toilet and someone hasn't replaced the toilet paper, I get angry sometimes. The smallest little things can trigger us because we're still holding on to this emotional trauma from the past. And so any small thing can really trigger that bigger emotion from the past because we haven't released it. We're holding on to it. What I've really discovered and really practiced now is having an awareness of when I have those negative emotions towards someone or towards a situation or towards an event, especially if they're emotions of anger, frustration, or resentment. Those are three of the emotions that I really look out for. And in this case, with this family member, it's the trigger of not feeling that that person stands up for himself. That's a really big trigger for me. So even if it's in a small situation where I feel like, the person hasn't stand up for herself, maybe the person got cheated by $1, he could have saved $2 and got cheated by $2 and he didn't stand up for himself for that $2. I get angry because of this bigger emotional trauma in my life. So even the smallest things can trigger us based on this past trauma, emotional, negative experience that we had, from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago as a child. And so I've been practicing, every single day of being absolutely aware of those emotions and then understanding that it's triggered by something bigger in my childhood or in my past. So Paula and I have been working on a technique called emotional resolution that helps to resolve these emotional triggers that we're having. And so the way the modality works is that you first recall an event, a recent event, where you felt that heightened negative emotion like anger or fear or frustration or anger. And so you recall that event. So I recall the event as saying, I was on the call with this family member and I was getting very angry at this person for not standing up for himself in this situation. And so as you recall the story, you zone in on the moment when that emotion is heightened at the highest. So the highest emotion of anger. And so then when you feel in that 1 second of that heightened negative emotion at its highest, whether it's anger, fear, frustration, resentment, that 1 second, you go into your body and you're scanning your body to see where that heightened negative emotion is manifesting in some kind of discomfort or pain. It could be anywhere in your body. You scan it. It could be in your stomach, in your head, in your shoulder, in your legs. You scan the body to see where you have any type of discomfort, because any negative emotion will manifest in the body as discomfort, right? Whenever we have some kind of negative emotion, right, we feel discomfort in our body. So we scan our body to see where that negative emotion is. And then what we do is we just observe that discomfort in that body. So if it's in the stomach, I just close my eyes and I keep observing that discomfort in my stomach with no judgment. You're just observing. And as you keep observing that discomfort in your body, the body, because it has infinite wisdom and intelligence, right? We can all agree with that. I mean, our body just automatically runs without giving any instructions, right? It has infinite intelligence and awareness and wisdom. The body resolves that pain and therefore resolves that emotional trigger from the past. And so what's beautiful about this technique is that it not only resolves the present day negative emotion, but it traces back to that initial negative emotion that I had from maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago as a child. And so this technique is so powerful. And so anytime that you have this emotional trigger, you just stop, you focus in on the moment where that negative emotion is the most heightened, and then you scan your body for any discomfort. You simply observe that discomfort in your body, and the body in its infinite wisdom just naturally resolves that negative emotion. This is a really powerful technique to heal negative emotional triggers in our lives. So next time you're triggered by a negative heightened emotion like anger, fear, frustration, resentment towards somebody or situation, just stop everything and focus in on that heightened negative emotion, and then scan your body to see where that emotion is manifesting in pain or discomfort, and just allow the body to resolve itself. So try this technique and let me know if it's worked for you. I mean, it takes practice. You may not get it right the first time, but it takes practice. And share any of your stories, experiences about emotional triggers that you have in your life, because your stories, comments, and feedback really help me and my community at large. And if you like this video, please make sure to share it and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to visit all of my spiritual and holistic living tips, just go to my website at yinandyangliving.com. Namaste.